committee members of the TransNational Education Special Interest Group, which is part of BALEAP. And for those of you who don't know it, BALEAP is the professional organization for practitioners in English for academic purposes. So this SIG is trying to bring people together to talk about issues and matters related to transnational education. And China is a big part of the UK TNE scene. Most TNE activity for the UK happens in China. Okay. So we're really pleased today to welcome Bowen Zhang to give her talk. Can I ask everyone to mute? That would be really kind. Bowen is a PhD candidate at the University of Manchester. Her research expertise focuses on the internationalization of Chinese higher education. And you've all seen her, the title of her session today. So I won't repeat that. And I'm going to let Bowen do a proper introduction in just a second. But I've realized that I am a useless chair and I forgot to do the shameless promotion for our SIG. So I just wanted to say that we have a website and we welcome you to go and visit it. For those of you who might be interested, we are always welcoming people to share blog posts. So if you're involved in EAP, please have a look at our blog and think about contributing. And of course, if you have an idea for another talk, please get in touch. So sorry about that. I'm doing things in the wrong order. But having done that, I can say that Sam has just put a link to our blog site in the chat. And now I can do it properly and hand over to Bowen. So thank you. Bowen, over to you whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Let me just share my screen first. Sorry, I didn't.
Nope, timing's perfect. Do that now. And then we're all set.
Sorry, just one sec.
And as you might see from the chat, everybody, the recording will be posted on the BALEAP TNE SIG website in due course. So if you want to share information about this with colleagues, do go ahead and do that.
Sorry, Liz, if you can give me 1 minute. I don't know why this kind of thing signed me out or some reason. Just sorry.
These things happen. That's fine.
Sorry.
If anyone wants to put comments in the chat, please do. I see a question about the recording for someone who's just joined. Yes, the recordings will be available on our website. That reminds me, Sam, I'm great at giving people work. Partway through the talk, can you put our website in again? It's that usual problem with Zoom. People who join don't see the chat that happened before they joined, I think.
Yeah, of course, can do.
Thank you. Do let us know if anyone, not me, because I have no expertise in Zoom, but if there's anything we can do. I'm sure there are others out there who know much more about Zoom than me.
Okay, well, I just finding this. I'm really sorry for that.
It
I
happens.
I should have sent you beforehand, but yeah, anyway. So I just want to say some word before that. So I really grateful for Liz to invite me into this talk, because I think she comes to our China Higher Education conference at Manchester online, and she kindly invited me to this. And also thanks for Stella, who really coordinate these things to happen. Right. Yeah, I can share now. Hi, Liz, can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see the slides. They're not yet in presenter view, but we can see them
it is.
clearly.
I know it's just there's something wrong with my computer.
Okay.
Completely stuck. So if I think this word version works, we can go from here if it's okay with you.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, I'm really sorry, everyone. So I hope you can see that clear, and I will turn into the presentation mode once it kind of let me, and apparently it is not doing the work now. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so okay, let me make an official start for this. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Bowen Zhang, and I am a final year PhD at the University of Manchester, very nearly finishing if I got good luck. Okay, so today's talk is a part of my PhD research, and this this part's title is called Negotiating Internationalization, and aim to unleash the potential of Chinese students' agency in transnational higher education. So basically in here, I aim to explore Chinese undergraduate students, specifically their engagements, their challenges, and agency in how to navigating their experiences into transnational higher education. So this one is a kind of a case study, and it focused on one particular transnational higher education institution, which I will be introduced later. So I just worry about if it is going to get stuck. Yeah, it is. So anyways, this is a research situated in the wider context of Chinese internationalization of higher education, and I will firstly introducing my Yes, this one. So I'm firstly introducing some very key concepts that are really centered to my research, and kind of my stance, my take into all these concepts and how they are really related to my research. So firstly, we have internationalization. So if you're a scholar in higher education, I think this one is kind of very powerful definition, and it got a bit cliche actually. So this is a definition by Jane Knight as early as in 2003. So she said that internationalization of higher ed is a incorporation of an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, or delivery of higher education. So this, although this definition is really widely accepted and powerful, influential, it is also being quite frequently criticized. So, for example, in the very latest paper of Simon Marginson, he criticized because of this definition being too purpose-driven, and also he said that there should. So although definition matters, there should not be one single definition that strives to be universal, which is that this definition is inclined to do, although it might not be the original intention of Enact. So being aware of this limitation of this definition, there are also some other conceptualizations focus on more ideological and political agenda, such as their and also their internationalization as a institutional commitment. So how university prioritize this agenda into their into the core of university's vision and mission, for example. So I also want to introduce there are different categories into internationalization. So I think the two most influential categories are internationalization abroad, which I introduce here as a physically mobile form of internationalization. So it is kind of referred to any form of educationally motivated mobility. So, for example, if there are international students who study outside of their country, international faculty working outside their country. So these are the kind of physically mobile form of internationalization. And we also have internationalization at home. So this is that the personnel do not need to move. So instead, there are provisions of international elements within the domestic higher education environment. So for example, we have an internationalization of curriculum, which is to incorporate some internationalized elements into the design of curriculum or the pedagogy. So these are the kind of the personnel do not move, but the program or the pedagogy or the curriculum come to the person. So this is the one of the most frequent concept that I will be using in this talk, because transnational higher education is widely involved in this category. So if you can see here, I introduce some very classic definition of transnational higher education. So it kind of referred to the mobility of the program, or if we are going a bit of the learner-centered, it is kind of so the awarding institution matters. So this is where the learners located in one country that different from the one they are being awarded. So this is the very classic definition, or say description of transnational higher education, which is, I think, going to the categories of the at home aspect of internationalization. Sorry. So as we are going into the transnational part, so there are different categories into the. So I will be referring to TNHE instead, because that's a very long word. So TNHE are consist of very different categories. So according to Wilkins, he kind of listed 5 main TNHE categories. So these are, I'm not going to introduce those in very details. These are not all relevant to my study, but I can just introduce that these categories are based on different premises, suppliers, and target students. So we have branch campus, we have different study centers, we have joint ventures, and a foreign-backed institution. So in my context, or we say in Chinese context, there is only one out of these 5 Oh, it should not be. Okay, one out of these 5 that are allowed in Chinese context, which is the joint venture. Because there is a policy issued in 2003, and it kind of explicitly prohibiting the unilateral establishment of educational institutions by foreign entities. So if we can go back here, we can see that whether it is branch campus or it is like a foreign backed, it is kind of a very unilateral provision from the foreign institution, while Chinese government only have place to accommodate these arrangements. However, joint venture is something different because it kind of really emphasizes the jointly owned nature of this institution. So that is the one that in Chinese context it is only allowed because of the bilateral characteristic in this arrangement. And so now I'll be going into introducing some of the very special, very unique traits of TNHE in China. So the first one, I would say it is relatively flexible and a little bit less government controlled, because TNHE in China is supposed to like reshape Chinese higher education landscape. So they have more flexible and more freedom to incorporate the changes that they want to make. This is the part where they don't have to follow the logic and the rules of other like non-TNHE sectors in China. However, this is a paradoxical situation is that Chinese government and maybe Chinese people are having some kind of a mixed feeling towards TNHE, because on the one hand, it affords the good intention of TNHE to change, to really, revolutionize higher education in China. But on the other hand, because of TNHE is like jointly owned in China, Chinese government is also aware of that the educational sovereignty would be compromised in this kind of arrangement. That's why I quoted here from Ding that TNHE is a revolution, but it kind of sadly fall into a marginal revolution. And the second one is that there are some inaccuracies in policy language, which kind of fail to reflect the actual needs and are challenging in practice. So I just included an example here, because in that policy document that I just introduced, there is a line that really explicitly saying that the Mandarin Chinese should be like the basic teaching language. So although this is translation, but it's like a literal translation. So Mandarin should be the Chinese, the basic teaching language. However, if you can see the screenshot here, this is a TNHE institution that I will be focusing. So this is the case university of my research. I introduced that a bit earlier. So you can see that here is that 100% taught English. So it's a stand in very stark contrast with the the policy requirement. And also it still tend to benefit the economically developed areas and individuals, which is contradicting the supposed principle. So I say supposed because that maybe that's ideal, but internationalization at home is supposed to be providing a chance for those who does not really got the resources and opportunities to study abroad. But apparently TNHEs are still really developing in those affluent areas, and with its quite expensive tuition fee, it kind of reproducing this inequality for those who can't afford to really study abroad. So those are some tensions or traits of TNHE in China. And also, since my focus is on TNHE students, Chinese students, so I will just briefly introducing some of the literature that has been written about TNHE students in China. I should add in China in the title. So Chinese students are often motivated because of a series of push and pull factors. So for example, there are not so satisfactory grades, because TNHE is often not unlike those high ranked ones, have a relatively low but not so low like threshold. And some people would use that as a substitute of studying abroad. And also TNHE are students involved in TNHE because of the alumni recommendations. So also TNHE institution has been constructed as a field that is closely resembles Western higher education. So a lot of students are drawn to this field because of the English medium instruction. So they kind of internalize and legitimize the use of English as a primary mode of communication, and they kind of essentialize it and saying that this is the most attractive aspect that draw them into TNHE. However, there are also challenges, of course. So people would say that in TNHE, they're expected to learn through English. However, when their English ability sometimes is not as the desirable level, sometimes they are neither improving their English nor their ability to comprehend their class content. And also that students, so although students are facing those challenges, they are kind of enact their agencies. This is my topic, but it's also seen from other scholars that students, they may, learn English first and then read the Chinese equivalent textbook for a, comprehensive understanding. And the existing scholar, such as Gwen Li, they kind of conceptualize that as a beneficial experience because that they can learn the content bilingually. So these are the benefits of their experiences, and this is the very beneficial risk managing experience in TNHE. So these are the existing studies written about TNHE students. And well, so in my research, I largely refer to a Bourdieuian perspective. I used concepts from Bourdieu. So firstly, why Bourdieuian perspective is relevant to TNHE? Firstly, I would say that so higher education is a field. So a field, according to Bourdieu, is a space that consists of positions in the relationship of mutual exclusion. So I think in higher education, this definition of field kind of holds true for the higher education sector, because higher education is characterized by its inherent distinctiveness and also constructed hierarchy. So higher education field is not a leveling play field. It consists of a lot of tensions and inequalities and hierarchies. So that's what make HE a field of power and field of struggle. And also, apart from field, we also have subfield. So that's why I also want to introduce TNHE as a subfield. So subfield is what that they follow its own unique logic, but it's also adhering to the overarching rules of the higher education. So if you can remember that I said earlier about TNHE in China, so it has some degree of flexibility. However, it is still operating within China as a geographical area. So it kind of still align itself to the Ministry of Education in China's requirements. And also that applying the logic from field and to subfield is not a linear and smooth process. It sometimes can characterize by asynchronicity and also dissonance. So as I will be introduced later, that this is also the case when you apply HE logic to TNHE, because sometimes the higher education issuing the policy which transnational higher education are having challenges to follow, so that can result in some more adaptable situations. So that's how field can a field can have a more, adaptable version of logic when applying its logic to the subfield. So this is for the field. And also I will be using heavily on habitus. So habitus is like a predisposition, is a tendency for people doing things. So a lot of research using habitus into Chinese, not only Chinese, of students when they're choosing in their universities, their experiences and their challenges. So particularly in TNHE environment, so habitus could be functioning in a way that TNHE promised to provide students with the opportunity to develop their intercultural skills through the provision of the internationalization at home, such as a curriculum that is internationalized. So in that way, students' capital can be enhanced, can be improved in a very direct and straightforward instrumental manner. So students can see their habitus as really aligning to the TNHE field of the latter, can providing them with their desirable capitals. So that's some of the Badiousian aspect that we'll be using. But however, I'll still say that there is still something that are missing from those narratives. So for example, although students see themselves really aligning with this field, however, maybe they will find the actual situation is not as desirable as they want to be. So what if the expected field and the actual field are different? And also, what if the students, maybe they want to accumulate certain capitals. For example, they want to improve their English. They want to, they want to study abroad after, so that they use that as a stepping stone. So what if this capital that they are envisioning are different from the capital that they actually acquire? So this is also related to internationalization. So since TNHE is highly internationalized, but people can have different perception into internationalization. So what if they're under the institutional and individual understanding of internationalization are different? So that's why this study aims to examining all the nuances and distinctions in the perceptions and actual experiences of students in the TNHE institution. So that is my way to complement those Badiousian discourse into understanding TNHE. And so I will introduce my research questions. So there are two. So firstly, how does internationalization influence Chinese students, undergraduate students' decision to study in a transnational higher education institution? And also, how do their lived experiences match or not match with their initial expectations? So my case study is Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University. So I will be referring to XJTLU afterwards. So XJTLU is a quite different arrangement in China, because although I introduced earlier that there is only one form of TNHE that are allowed in China, which is the joint venture. However, a lot of universities in China are still operating like branch campus. So for example, there is University of Nottingham Ningbo. So this is a institution that are trying to replicate a UK mode of education. However, XJTLU is different. So firstly, XJTLU can do that because they have nominally academically equal partners. So Xi'an Jiaotong University and Liverpool universities are kind of are all very high ranked universities in their own countries, so they can have a very equal share of designing curriculum, and so something like that. And also, so for example, scholar saying that XJTLU's future is not prescribed. So comparing to those universities who are trying to replicate UK modes, so XJTLU is characterized by some uncertainties. So in other words, in XJTLU, its internationalization is open to discussion or open to co-construct in its campus. So, but it's also like 100% taught English, as I introduced earlier. And yeah, they have a shared localized model of governance curriculum design because of their because of its equal partners, and is also underpinned by a student-centered philosophy. So this is not like the as explicit as the 100% taught in English. However, when I explore its website, its vision and mission statement, I find student-centeredness is a really frequently mentioned core of establishing XVTLU. So I think this is a really like a teaching philosophical foundation of XVTLU is built on. So yeah, I just briefly got into my methodology and positionality here. So I think for me, I'm kind of in between. I'm both an insider and outsider. So I'm not part of XVTLU before or now, because I've never been studied to them. So I can still remember that sometimes when I introduce my topic to others, so I said that, okay, I will be researching XVTLU. So they're asking me that, so were you a student before? Are you an alumni? So that question that kind of really get me interested, because people would assume that you are kind of affiliated in this university some way in order to be interested. However, I think my interest does not come from here. And so in that way, I'm a completely outsider. I don't have any specific contextual expertise into XVTLU. However, I would also say I'm also an insider, because I also involved in internationalization in some way. So I have been international students for quite a few years, and I also I can relate to students in that way. So although we have a different form of internationalization, I'm kind of an insider because we're all within this realm, and there are some similarities and commonalities between us. So I mediated my in-between positionality by choosing a very deliberate expression of my different identities. So sometimes I will ask them to provide some contextual information based on my outsider positionality, and also I relate to them in terms of internationalization as an international student. So that is my positionality into my research. So in total, there are 29 students that are then studied in XVTLU that I've been talking with. And there are in total 8 online focus groups. They're all on Zoom, which is kind of a shame, because I was hoping to really see the campus, but since this is not happening, so I just conduct like 8 online groups, and also both inductively and deductively form thematic analysis. So now I've taken some time, so now it's time to really properly introduce some findings of my own. So I will in the finding sections, I will be like divide that into four sections. So firstly, how do they get to know the concept of internationalization? So when I ask students this question, they are saying that this is very similar to the previous literature, that the TNHE can provide them with an almost guaranteed capital. So if you can see this quote here, so this is the dialogue between me and one student. So one student said that one staff on an opening day showed them a slide with a comparison between the admission rates to some Western high-ranked elite universities from XVTLU and also from some Chinese elite universities. But they can see that the XVTLU's admission rate to these universities are highly surpassing the Chinese universities. So students are feeling like they are having a almost guaranteed capital. So once they entering this, they will be promised to a much brighter future as they would illustrate it. And so students would say that this is a make-up chance. This is a make-up second chance because of their perceived failure in their examinations. And yeah, so as this dialogue shows, students' perception of a stepping stone has been largely legitimized by XVTLU. And they also change from being compromised to being motivated. So at first, they are largely pushed because of their because of examination grades or some other limitations. However, once they get to know XJTLU, they are more pulled by all the attractiveness provided by this institution. So secondly, after getting to know, they are expecting internationalization. So English medium, English language instruction is a key to form their expectations. So, but not all of them are really confident of their English level. So they're either being really confident to say that, so my past experience or my habitus really align with this field. So English is a key aspect to draw me here. And also some of them are, if they're not really confident, they're bench preparing. So again, if you can see the conversation here, that students saying that they're really worried about not being able to understand. So before they come into XJTLU, they preview all the contents or the as much as they can in Chinese to get a more comprehensive understanding once they're in there. And also they will expect internationalization as a free and open space that are very different from other non-TNHE sectors, which is also reason that drag them here. And also there are some students who have been experiencing some form of Western or specifically UK higher education, and they will expect that they're similar, so they don't have to really prepare a lot because they expect these would be very similar to what they had. So at this stage, students' expectation are very practical, but not really outcome oriented. So by this, I mean that students are excited about the possibilities once they are in XJTLU. But in this stage, they have not envisioned that XJTLU would be a effective stepping stone into their future, whether it is studying abroad or something else. So thirdly, this is something I'll be talking about once they're there. So although they have been expecting XJTLU as a very, very, open and free space, but once they're there, they're still being exposed to a lot of Chinese language sessions, especially ideological sessions, the political courses that they are not really excited about. So there are some of the students told me that they feel that they are not signed up for this, but they're still very much involved. So I have included some Chinese memes here. So if you're familiar with some Chinese internet memes, you're kind of familiar with those. So these are some memes that are put out when pandemic lockdown period in China. So students are really not satisfied with university arrangement. So they're hoping XJTLU could be really open, free. However, they're still being very much restricted, aligned with the Chinese COVID policy, so that they are putting out a lot of sarcastic memes to show the rebellion of this not very open space in XJTLU. And so apart from this, students initially they're being disappointed, but after some time they start to appreciate Chinese sessions because they are focusing on the grade enhancing instead of language improvement. So some students are realizing that if they are going to be studying English, neither their English ability nor their academic ability will be improved. So that's why they're really appreciating those Chinese sessions, which offer them a chance to really dig into those content in Chinese, so that at least they can improve their grades. So that's how Purdue calls the objectified capital. So if students are adopting those mindsets, improving English has been seen as a really unnecessary move, because in XJTLU, how you can achieve an internationalization has been really prescribed. So this prescription is reflected in a lot of English usage as such, but students are whether they're active or passive, but they are challenging this kind of prescribed route. They don't think that they can really benefit from this prescribed route of internationalization, which has already been planned. So what are they doing about it? Some of the students I've been talking to have been showing with an attitude that they are willing to make the most of it, making the most out of it. So sometimes an internationalized environment is helpful, but in some unintentional or accidental way. So I'm saying that because students are really expecting students to benefit from the English teaching and learning. However, sometimes students are benefit from something else. As you can see, at least as the second point, students are valuing a student-centered classroom as a useful preparation for studying abroad. So although they still want to study abroad as the most of students, but they kind of viewing English is not the only way that can prepare them for it. They sometimes saying that they are more valued as a student-centered classroom, maybe because there are different there are international students in XTLU, so that is a kind of a natural internationalized environment of XTLU, although it has not been properly prioritized. But students, their perception of internationalization is still very much in need of the institutional support. So now we can see that students are benefit in a very accidental way. So before they come to XTLU, university does not place a very high emphasis on, student environment or any part of the campus experience that they're about to experiencing. So that's why the institutional priority kind of gets in the way of students to form a very proper expectation in XTLU. And also that's I will also emphasize that although students saying that student-centered environment in XTLU is really great and really beneficial, but they also admitting that it is still in progress. Sometimes they're feeling that student-centered are sometimes a too free arranged discussion modes would make them confused and lost, and maybe not as beneficial as they thought would be, but students generally are really understandable towards it, and they feel like this is a really good start for XTLU and for them to get into their academic future. So after introducing all these findings, I will just have a visualization of something I made. So this is also aligned with Badiousian field. So you can see the international higher education and Chinese higher education are intersect in some ways. So I say international here is does not mean Chinese higher education are not international or anything like that. It's just so here it means that any non-Chinese higher education. So the international higher education is intersect with the Chinese higher education. And you can see that transnational education belongs to the large realm of the Chinese one because it's geographically in China. So I would say it is a subfield of Chinese higher education, but it is kind of have an intersect between international higher education. It is indigenized. It is a indigenized and adaptable form of Chinese higher education. So this is. But so my point is that XTLU has overly focused on the part that has been characterized by international higher education, but sometimes it forgets that it is still in China and they need to build students proper expectation that this is still a Chinese university and the Chinese elements should not be forgotten. And that's how students can properly and reasonably benefit rather than promoting a indisputable English-only environment. So these are some last words. So these are quite long, so I just kind of summarize that. So in conclusion, I think in my research, Chinese students are showing their huge potential in disrupting the prescribed form of internationalization in XTLU, but it is equally unfortunate because they have to disrupt the prescribed. Because if you can remember from earlier that someone criticized the definition of internationalization because it's trying to plan, it is trying to set out some planned agenda even before it is put into practice. So this is a very similar situation in XTLU. So they are trying to plan internationalization beforehand. And in that way, my first point is that internationalization, as broad as this concept might be, it has been sadly reduced down to, oh, sorry, I didn't introduce this abbreviation earlier. So it has been reduced down to English medium instruction, to the core logic of the field. And it's also kind of explicitly legitimized by its marketing and promotional strategy. So if you can remember the admission rates that has been really proudly presented by XTLU. And in this research, students are really bringing their willingness to learn contents in a more student-centered and critical manner, which is much more than a reduced down archetype of 100% English. So students are benefit from student-centered environment. So this is something more vibrant, more nuanced and complicated environment than what would define XTLU. And lastly, I would say that for the type of TNHE institutions such as XTLU, it would be really important to align the three parts. So firstly, the promotional communication, and also international exposure, and a more inclusive approach to linguistic usage. So I would say that in this research, internationalization has been constructed as some form of serendipity, so students can accidentally find their benefits. So this is, although this has been outlined as a positive thing in the existing literature, I would say this is a very dangerous aspect in higher education, where students have to find their own way to benefit and really challenge the institutional priority, which is supposed to form a reasonable expectation in Chinese students. So yeah, so Liz, I think I will be finishing here, and sorry for the glitch before this. So yeah, thank you everyone.